Welcome back, everyone. This is another installment of MustardHub Voices Behind the Build. In these fireside chats, I sit down with the people building, backing, and running better workplaces. I'm your host, Curtis Forbes. My guest today is Ian Redlin. Ian is a dedicated leader and a passionate advocate for entrepreneurs and owner-operators, backed by nearly 3 decades in supply chain automation. Throughout his career, Ian's navigated major economic shifts by reinventing his business model and launching market-defining solutions in fields ranging from business process automation to returns processing and circular supply chains. He's held pivotal roles as consultant, VP of engineering at publicly traded Powerhouse, and most importantly, CEO as an entrepreneur, consistently driving innovation and team success. In addition to his operational leadership, Ian actively invests in other entrepreneurs' organizations, contributing as both a coach and financial investor to help founders accelerate their growth. Ian's hallmark is building tenacious, supportive teams with cultures rooted in audacity and resilience, where collective achievement is always the goal, as his team can attest. Welcome to Behind the Build. Nice to meet you, Ian. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you for inviting me, Curtis. I'm very excited for this conversation.
That was a mouthful, but I feel like was probably only the tip of the iceberg, really. You and I were introduced by our very first guest, Matt Posey, at Whipfly, who has never steered us wrong. So shout out to him. And obviously that gives us high expectations for today.
It truly does. It truly does. And he's such a fantastic guy. And I did watch that first episode, and he's such a charismatic guy, and there's never a dull moment with him.
Well, we'll be sure to give him a shout out. You have a really impressive career in technology. Now you're CEO at Octolan Technology. So to kick things off, I really want to hear about your journey from 0 to 1 and then 1 to where we are today. How did you get here? How did you get in this role? How did you get started?
Yeah, that's great, and it's hard to remember back that far, Curtis. But it's funny. I actually graduated from college in Montana State University, the business school in Billings, Montana. So it definitely was not one of those. Being able to launch out of a business program and have multiple opportunities all over the place. But when I did choose to move to Minnesota, I entered a company where I knew that I would have the opportunity to take a little bit more of a consulting approach to my day-to-day activities, and that was really one of the things that was important to me, was to be able to travel and to start to learn businesses and what makes them tick, and how I can help them be more successful in what they're doing. So I did that by getting involved with a company called St. Paul Software, which is now SPS Commerce. And I very quickly realized that in order to help a company with their B2B e-commerce, that type of thing, I needed to understand everything about their business. It touches everything from order to cash, purchase to pay, all over the place. So, really looking at just my willingness to learn and don't say no to an opportunity, and just continue to learn and kind of be bold and tenacious in everything that I did. So, coming out of that more consultative approach, started looking at what I could do beyond just the B2B space, and doing this consulting. So very early on, started a staff augmentation solution, still in the ERP implementation and B2B e-commerce space, and very quickly learned that the business, the entire business world, really still continues to operate on a network. And don't burn your bridges. Make sure that you have a positive engagement with everyone that you work with, because even back then, before there was LinkedIn, before there was all these different types of social networks out there, word gets around. And if you do a good job, word gets around. If you do a bad job, word gets around. So making sure that everywhere that I went, I tried to leave, kind of a positive trail, and continue to not only invest in my own education of how what makes companies successful, but also in those that I worked with. So helping people along the way, making those connections, and that was really the key. When I suppose it was probably kind of around the Great Recession, we learned that relying on projects in large organizations, so we're working with Fortune 500 companies and doing these really significant projects. When the economy takes a turn, those projects dry up, and we had to change very quickly in order to adapt to the new ways of working. And it seems like this has happened a few times throughout my career, where there's just, there's something, pretty major. COVID was a pretty good one that just changes the ways of working, and the way that your business can continue to operate and help those customers that you're still able to maintain. So throughout that journey, began to get more involved on the technical side of things, and building software. And that was really, I think, a transformative point in my career, where I started like bringing myself out of the day-to-day work and starting to trust others to build a solution in whatever space it was that we were in. And that was, primarily B2B, application integration, that type of thing. And bring in individuals that know more than I do, that are just, some of the most brilliant or the most charismatic people, and help lead them in a direction, but trust them throughout the way in order to really create something that's magical and impactful in the industry. And then I got to just be the sales guy, right? And I got to go out and promise things, and make sure that the team delivered. But that's truly what led us into the acquisition from SPS Commerce back in 2018, where the process of being a trusted partner with SPS Commerce, but a competitor at the same time, presented a lot of new opportunities and challenges. And working through that process, learning how a large public company works, and how different that is from a bootstrap tech org. Especially thinking about your expertise in HR, and the systems and the processes that are in place in a large organization around HR was a huge learning opportunity for me. So working with a company of 20 people, where I know, and was at some level involved in hiring each individual within that organization, into now like working with teams from Ukraine, and had a great trip to Australia to get to know the team over there, and really thinking in a more global scope, and how people truly impact every point of your value proposition with your customers, was super educational and inspiring at the same time. So getting to see how a company like SPS Commerce works, and how they really master things like just career ladders, right? And so I really remember working through career ladders within the tech org, and thinking more deliberately about how a person moves through their career. I mean, it was something that, as a bootstrapped organization, and always being a little bit more freewheeling and carefree through that process, we always tried to find new opportunities for people, but never really thought about like, what are the skills that you need to learn to take you where you want your career to go. So that was definitely fascinating. And then moving into after spending a couple of years at SPS Commerce, took a little bit of time off, and realized that there's still problems out there that I think kind of the thing that really drives me forward is not only my passion for entrepreneurship, but also to understand how technology can help marry with a business process in order to make people's lives better. So I think at the core, I'm a people pleaser, and now I just get to use technology in order to make my job a little bit easier in that area, right? And so that's been something really exciting as we launched Octolan. and went back out into the industry and said, all right, what are the tough nuts? What are the things that are really difficult for people right now? And how can we make their lives better? How can we help companies succeed? How can we help those that are struggling to find a path forward in their organization to be able to ensure that they still keep the doors open and continue to grow and give them things to help bolster what makes them successful to begin with. And that's really been the passion that led us into Returns Desk and Better EDI.
You covered a lot. That's a great story. And it's no, but I mean, it's very colorful. Because I think it helps sort of understand what that career trajectory, that story arc, right, about your professional life kind of looks like. So what does Octolan Technology do? Tell me about the products you offer, the challenges you solve.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So when we launched Octolan, we did what I would never advise anyone to do, and that's we built a product without having a clue what it was going to do. Right. So we
Okay.
basically built a platform that we wanted to be able to launch products on top of. And so based on the history that I'd had, I knew that there's certain components that every software solution is going to need. And so we basically built this platform without really thinking about what we were going to use it for. We knew eventually we'd get back into kind of the B2B space, and that was, that's always going to follow me around, and I love it. It's something I'm super passionate about. But we wanted to open the door to something new, and so
Okay.
as we built this solution, I got re-engaged with my network after taking a little bit of time off, and very quickly realized that reverse logistics and returns management, just the returns pandemic that we have right now,
Mhm.
it was significant, not only in its financial impact. In 2025, it should be around $850 billion worth of
Wow.
returns.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's absolutely astonishing. And above 15% of all merchandise, of all revenue, is brought back as returns. So it's super impactful, but it's really really difficult. So comparing the outbound fulfillment process, where you've got everything, all cartons are shaped so that they can be shipped efficiently, so they can be packaged on pallets and brought through warehouses and into stores and to consumers' doorsteps. Everything is really is designed in order to be efficient in that process. But the reverse logistics side is exactly the opposite. You have no idea what you're going to see coming in, and what we really focused on was that final mile of return. So when a product gets back to a warehouse from a consumer, what is that process of inspection and determining the disposition, trapping fraud? I mean, that's absolutely enormous. The fraud impact of reverse logistics and returns is something that I love seeing what some of the more innovative companies are doing to try and identify those people that are responsible for fraud and finding ways to keep them from continuing
Wow.
uh, to impact these companies negatively. But then there's also the carbon impact side of this, and bringing, so our passion is like starting to bring returns closer to the consumer. What's happened over the last few years, especially after COVID, as returns absolutely just multiplied, was that we would end up shipping products back across the country. So a return product would go back to the carrier, back to UPS, and then it would be shipped back to a facility in New Jersey. And then they would look at it and they'd be like, "Yeah, there's really nothing we can do with this," and it goes into a landfill. That was entirely too
Hmm.
common of a pattern. So we got more involved with the Reverse Logistics Association, which is now NRF Rev, which is a really exciting thing for that organization, to be able to bring some of these things into focus. But it was really, for us, it was looking at the industry and learning very quickly that there's certainly an opportunity here for a business, but not just
Yeah.
our business. It's also an opportunity for third party logistics organizations that are so focused, especially this time of the year, starting to get it. Well, not starting to, but being solidly into the holiday shopping spree and fulfillment of all types of different merchandise that they staff up and make sure that they can ship everything on time and make happy consumers across the country. But then, typically in January, that demand just drops off. And so these third party logistics organizations, these 3PLs, have now a new opportunity to be able to assist their brands and distributors and help them and retailers for that matter, help them kind of finish this reverse logistics cycle and bring those products back in and help manage that product flow so that they can potentially resell those items, or there's so many different opportunities that are popping up for
Mhm.
beyond just liquidation, or God forbid put everything in a landfill, which has been that pattern entirely too long. But it brings a new opportunity out for owner operators of 3PLs, as well as just individuals, to be able to start getting more involved in the returns process and reverse logistics. So kind of back to that entrepreneurship side of things,
Yeah.
our solution is really targeted to scale from very small organizations up to those that are doing, thousands and thousands of returns in a month.
You know, this leads me to, like, I have a whole bunch of questions. Just from all of this. I mean, number one, I'm very curious. Well, I imagine AI plays a big part, right, in Octolan's automation. And what I'm interested to know, tell me about the kinds of, we don't have to use any names here, but tell me about the kind of organizations that work with Octolan, number one. And are these companies that you work with really eager to embrace AI? Do you see any reluctance there?
I think I think there's a lot of excitement around AI. So we work with companies that range from a mom and pop shop that has one product that they got a
Okay.
contract with Target, and they're or Amazon. Amazon's a great example. They're selling a product on Amazon, and we're helping them with fulfillment cycle with better EDI and that process automation, and then on the return side as well, right? So we get to see that full circularity within that
Mhm.
organization, end to end, and then what happens with that product afterwards. So working with small organizations as well as large distributors that are selling very expensive electronics, working with companies that are shipping and seeing returns of clothing, right? And so apparel is really exciting on both sides. But all of these organizations are looking for more intelligent ways
Yeah.
to reduce their costs of fulfillment and make sure that they can, bring as much of that inventory through their system as efficiently as possible without having a glut of merchandise in a warehouse that may never sell. And that's where apparel gets to be a lot of fun, and we can talk about that for hours probably. But being able to work with all these different types of organizations, they all have a very common goal, which is to become more efficient, right? And
Right.
and as long as the use of AI is focused around what their competitive differentiator is, what is it that makes them unique, what makes them special,
Mhm.
how can AI help enhance that? As long as they're thinking about it in that way, they tend to be really excited, and they see benefit from AI. But it's also very easy to get excited about fancy things on the market where it's like, oh wow, look at that, I can streamline this process, or um, I can use this to write all of my emails for me, and to
Right.
do all these things that brings the human component of their business out of the picture, and it becomes more mechanized, and doesn't necessarily help them be more successful, just helps them do stuff more, or do stuff more quickly, I should say. So it's really exciting to see the innovation that AI brings forth in an industry, but also the distractions that can come with it. And a lot of the excitement has been around more of those distractions than really the things that add value to a business. So that's where we've been. Within our solution, we use AI in a number of ways, including dispositioning items, like in the returns process, to be able to determine the condition by a photograph, and
Mhm.
or being
Mhm.
able to identify what the item actually is at times, by using AI and taking a photograph and then getting information about that product. Can it be Can it potentially be resold? What is the value of the
Yeah.
item? Is it something that we need to look at finding a recycling opportunity for, or donation opportunity for, as opposed to getting it back on a secondary market? Things like that are very obvious. But then even looking at the optimization of inventory and helping companies identify where their products are selling more quickly. These aren't necessarily new concepts, but AI is helping people be more effective more quickly to solve the challenges that they've been struggling with over time. So as long as they're using it that way, they've been very successful. But it's very easy to get excited about the flashy things that you hear about AI,
Well, yeah.
um, and not really knowing how to apply that to your business.
I like how you frame it like that, and I think that when you do think about it that way, it almost makes it easy to embrace, but it's just so rapidly advancing across all industries in almost every capacity, right? Not everybody's embracing it with open arms. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty from businesses and business communities when it comes to bringing AI into the organization, and it's not just the business leaders, right, experiencing it, right? It's the workforce in general. I think that might have some anxiety about it, and you know, looking at or thinking about those more entry level, less skilled workers, some fear that it's going to take their jobs, right? And they'll find themselves unable to work, right? I mean, you described a really incredible scenario about how AI can actually help and sort of augment the business processes really to help make it better, right? But there's a whole other sort of, I think, dark side for a lot of folks, right? When you bring it into the that context of, is there an opportunity to use it here to do, the work that, to take the place of work that people are doing? Is that a legitimate fear? How do business leaders assuage that kind of worry from their workforce? Or, I mean, is it a conversation that they have to have, knowing that, the very real outcome could be there might be some staff departures?
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing right now, as opposed to AI replacing people, is someone's role will change due to AI, and so the way that they do something will change, and it does. What we've seen the most is as as AI helps make certain parts of your organization more efficient, similar to what implementing an ERP did years ago. And like anytime a company finds a way to be more efficient, you have a risk of displacing people. But in this instance, what I've seen more of is it's changing the way that people work, and the more successful organizations, as they adopt AI strategies into their organization, um, the the concept of being as transparent as possible with the goals of the organization, but sticking to the values of the organization really does help alleviate a lot of those fears of the workforce. So, helping them understand that what what is our AI strategy? How do we plan on rolling this out? And what kind of an impact does that have to your role? Also should be presented with, we want to learn with you, we want to
Yeah.
engage with you as we go through that process. I think about the ERP implementations that I've been part of over the years, and the most successful ERP implementations are those where the team that will be using the solution are actively engaged in the implementation. And this is exactly the same thing. It's a new technology. There's new efficiencies to be brought here. Bring along all of the knowledge that you have, and these people that have these little secret ways of doing things,
Mm.
that are keeping your products still shipping, and money still coming in, is a huge part of every organization. And making sure that you bring that knowledge with you and enable them to do different things and be more productive on their own, it will definitely impact the hiring side of things, where you will not need to replace people as quickly. But we haven't seen as much of like a pure departure of like, okay, we just don't need these people to do
Yeah.
their jobs anymore. And obviously, the size of the organization and global organizations that are taking a different approach, have a different story than what I see in a day to day
You you
perspective.
you brought up though um, a really good topic, right? About what you're seeing is not that it's getting rid of people. To some degree, it is, right? I mean, we've seen what happened at Amazon, right? We've seen it, it's not that it's not going to happen, right? But I think what you pointed out is what you're seeing more often, um, is that it's changing how people work. So I guess a follow up that I would ask is, what would you say to those professionals, or what would you recommend that they need to learn, or how do they prepare so that they remain competitive, right? Whether it's in their roles or in these new roles, right? If you're describing how folks might have, there might be new opportunities, right? Or it might change how they work because now there's some, new process or system with AI. How do they prepare for that so that they can stay competitive and relevant?
That is really, yeah, that's really a key question. And it's one of those things where it's so incredibly industry specific and role specific, right? But I think continuing to advocate for yourself and actively search for education around how AI is impacting your role, and how other organizations with your role are implementing AI, becomes, uh, I think, key in success, not only in the organization that you're in, but if you're looking at, hey, I may potentially be moving to another company that has, a more clear strategy for me and has values that align with mine.
Mhm.
And how can I bring some of that knowledge into that organization as well, I think is super important. So, um, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, you also made a really interesting comment about where we talked earlier about, the shiny new object, right? We talked about how it can be, ushered into an organization to, maybe there's, as a change agent, maybe to, increase efficiency, maybe to do all of these things that we don't even know what it's going to do yet. We just want it to do something, right? We hear about AI, we want AI, we know it's going to make things better. Let's use it. I don't know how, but I want it tomorrow. So how does the organization plan for roles that are probably not even fully defined yet? Or that
Yeah,
maybe don't even exist? Or can they prepare for these things?
yeah, and we do know of some, depending on the industry. I mean, there's roles like a prompt engineer that you've probably heard of,
Mhm.
that are just, and companies bringing more technology in house and doing some of their own development, um, for their own technology. There are areas that we definitely know, okay, here's roles and skills that will be needed. But at the same time, it's that wisdom of when to use AI, when to trust AI, and how to continue critical thinking skills. I mean, I think that's probably one of the most important
Maybe
factors
AI
of
can
this.
tell us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like, hey, AI, how can I improve my critical thinking skills? And people just tend to trust what they read from AI.
Yeah.
If we're just looking at, Chat GPT and things, it's like, yeah, sometimes it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we've heard some great stories over the years of AI just coming up with some absolutely bizarre concepts and supporting
Yeah.
it with non-factual information. So,
Yeah.
critical thinking skills. An organization needs to think about, guardrails around how they're using AI. So security is a huge concern around AI, where people have put their P&L out into Chat GPT and said, hey, analyze these numbers for me and tell me what I should do. It's like, no, 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 no. Let's not put everything out into this giant machine and make all of your information public. A company needs to be really deliberate about how they are implementing AI, and really think about how can we slow roll the implementation, so that we're doing things in a deliberate way
Let's
and
talk about that.
focusing on getting value.
Let's talk about that. I'm really interested. I mean, given everything that you've experienced prior to and now in your current role, what kind of things do you think need to be included in an adoption plan or in your AI strategy?
Yeah, I think taking a thoughtful approach to AI adoption is absolutely essential. So, looking, kind of going back to problem solving skills. Let's find a problem. Let's a real problem that we see today, not one that may happen. Let's look
Right.
at a real problem that we have today, and how would AI potentially help us solve this problem? What products that are using AI can help us solve this problem in a more efficient way than just brute force or whatever the current
Mhm.
solution may be today. I think the important thing is to focus on what your company does well and enhance that. Or if there's a huge risk in your company, how can you use AI to help potentially shore up that risk a little bit so that you don't have that gaping risk on the side that's kind of constantly in your mind. Um, we have seen companies that have been too nimble in adopting AI, and it leads them to a cliff where now they're depending on AI so heavily that if they don't have access to AI, they no longer have a manual process to ship products out, right? So there's always this balance with technology and something that is so cloud dependent that your internet access to your office now becomes like the most critical part of your business. If I can't access AI that's out in the cloud, um, then my business process internally may not be able to function. I mean, we have so many different cloud systems now that's always a risk. But as companies, as there's been so much investment in AI over the years, and there hasn't necessarily been the profitability there, we're putting a lot of trust into something that is not fully vetted, right? It's like we see a lot of value from it, but there's a ton of risk there. So being thoughtful and intentional about how you're implementing it so that you balance that risk, and try not to get yourself to that edge of the cliff where it's too easy to trust it and fall over the cliff and do something that drastically harms your business.
You know, we're all about people here at Mustard Hub. So really curious about whether or not you have any thoughts on AI's overall application in the world of HR, right? So, for example, being applied heavily in aspects of recruiting, hiring, HR tech. It was pretty much only these end-to-end AI solutions for pre-hire, right? From sourcing to ATS, right, through offer letter signed. Um, Many are concerned with how top talent can be overlooked as a result, right? How problematic is this, if
I
at
mean,
all?
it is a real thing. I mean, depending on the strategy that your HR team uses as they go through evaluating individuals, it becomes very easy to become too dependent on AI to really focus on what is it in that profile or that resume that we're looking for that has probably been written by or with the use of AI as well, right?
Yeah.
And so it's funny that we're talking about HR and we're taking the human out of it so actively in this process
Right.
where we
I
really
love
need
that.
to
Thank you
inject.
for thank you for pointing that out. I don't even think I thought about that.
Yeah. So but the risk is absolutely real. And in the sourcing process within HR, continuing again, it goes back to critical thinking and making sure that we're not fully trusting a machine to do our jobs for us. It should be enhancing the way that we do our job. So it might filter out risk. So you could find individuals that there's something in their resume that's like, okay, that's probably something that we don't want to get involved in, or that they don't have experience in our industry, but focusing on the person, and trying to identify even key uh, key statements within the resume or the profile that will help bring it to the top, but don't fully trust that in that process, and make sure that people are still involved. You're hiring a person, and I would never I would never hire someone without meeting them and having a conversation with them. And so we just need to make sure that we're being deliberate in that process.
Do you I agree. And thank you for that. I mean, do you see in other applications for AI in the world of work? I mean, what do you think could be or should be next in HR?
I think using HR to help with conversations, help lead conversations with your employees, help with employee engagement. I think that AI can be really good at identifying patterns, right?
Mhm.
And so being able to use exit interview data in order to identify patterns in that data that might be a problem with an individual or a department within your organization that has some potential risk in it, as well as identifying opportunities, right? So I think probably one of the, other than pay, which is always probably the most common thing, but individuals that aren't engaged are not engaged for a reason, and
Yeah.
that often points to leadership or their individual role, right? It seems like those are two things that always pop up. So being able to find those patterns earlier on and bring that data forward to leadership so that they can be more thoughtful about these roles and the individuals in their organization. But it's really got to come back to I think to those conversations and um, bringing bringing forth some insights potentially that are harder for humans to identify.
I think, you really kind of nailed it with pattern recognition. And I think that a lot of businesses don't or they haven't necessarily had, you know, the ability, whether it's a lack of resources, technology, or otherwise, to be able to get that level of understanding of why their business is behaving the way the business is behaving. And whether that means, taking in all of this really interesting data and getting some sort of predictive insights or retrospective, right? So looking back and looking forward can do some pretty incredible things, right? um, at least I tend to see it kind of go in that direction. um, as all these innovations in tech and AI are moving so quickly, what do you think your own work is going to look like?
Everything has changed so quickly already, Curtis.
And it will again in the next 18 months.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Everything has changed incredibly rapidly. It's given us the ability to adapt more quickly, and kind of that same thing with the pattern recognition, identifying potential opportunities for where our product is going, or what our potential customers are seeing, what consumers are seeing. Being able to bring that information forward has been really impactful. It's changed my job, where in the past, it's a lot of what we've done has been our strategy has been informed by my experiences, right?
Mhm.
So the more time I have face to face with people, the more information I get, the more I can adapt and help lead the organization. Whereas now I'm taking much more information from potentially from AI or from uh, even just being able to filter down some of the noise out there so that I can see what's going on LinkedIn. Right?
Right,
AI
right.
is very prominent in LinkedIn
Oh,
and
yeah.
bringing up messages of my contacts that are struggling with problems or that have innovated and created something new that I never considered before. There's a company called Arvis that is using AI and cameras in a warehouse to first and foremost to help with safety and things like that. I just never really considered what kind of an opportunity there is
Right.
to be able to use AI in that area. So it's really it's the speed of imagination is really seems to be as
Yeah.
as as fast as AI moves, and so it's even I think about how much time I used to take writing a proposal for a customer. And now we've got so many models of what we've done. We can use AI to take proposals that we've done, bring some of that information back together and just streamline it, make it a little bit easier for our customers to understand, and save us a little bit of time while we're doing it. So, I mean, it's really just continuing to keep our eyes open and be tenacious in our learning, and just constantly be open to new ideas, but cautious at the same time.
It makes me curious, right? Because one of the things we've talked a lot about Octolan and how it's sort of baked into that DNA, but we've totally neglected all of the other things that you do, right? You're a coach. You work with other entrepreneurs. You work with other businesses. You're a financial investor in some of them. How does AI impact the other work you do, even outside of this role?
That's actually a really good question, and it's maybe an embarrassing answer, but not at all. I mean, the
Maybe that's
funny
a good
thing
thing.
is, I do think it is a good thing because it truly is that interpersonal relationship. So other than potentially doing helping with research and that type of thing, it really is. It hasn't impacted that area at all. There's still, I think there's still enough thoughtful deliberation around how AI can be implemented in different companies that uh, having a conversation is still much more impactful than feeding a tool out into that area.
That's kind of the answer I was hoping for, quite honestly. So I'm glad I got it. Um, I love asking this kind of question to wrap up. If you had a single piece of advice for a business leader when it comes to adopting, AI in their organization in a way that really does right by their workforce, what do you tell them? What's that one piece of advice you're going to want to leave them with? Maybe you're on an elevator up to the top floor and before it opens and they head right out the door. How do you address that?
Well, I break every rule, so I'm not going to give you one. I'm going to give you probably two, and as I continue talking, it might become three. But I think the first thing is be transparent with your people and deliberate with your messaging.
Hmm.
And part of that is it's okay if you may not have that clear vision on how AI can be used in your organization because nobody does.
Yeah.
It's moving quickly enough and evolving in a way that we don't necessarily know where it's going to be. Like you said, in 18 months, it's going to be completely different.
Mhm.
But being transparent with your people, and being clear that you're still going to stick to your values. There's a reason your organization and why your company has grown to the point that you've got these employees. I've started with just myself in an organization and built it up, and anyone that has done that or has come into an organization and continued to build a team has to understand that there's values, there's things that you're doing that are making your organization successful, and that is your people. At the end, that is always your people. Your technology is great to help in that process, but your values have to be centered in your people. And as long as you continue, again, being transparent and deliberate in your messaging, but sticking to those values, I think that's really the key.
I love that. And you didn't turn it into three.
I didn't. I kind of rolled it back into one a little
I
bit.
was gonna say, I think you rolled it back to one.
All right. I am
Uh,
trainable.
yeah. Ian, I really, really appreciate you, taking the time to join me today. Thank you so much. I feel like we got a lot out of it.
This has been just tons of fun, Curtis, and I really I welcome the conversation, and it was a lot of fun just to talk through things, and I hope to have more conversations with you like this.
I feel like we're gonna have a few. I'm gonna have a couple for sure. Of course, thanks everybody for joining us. This is Mustard Hub Voices Behind the Build. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I also recommend visiting mustardhub.com. There you can learn more about Mustard Hub and get started for free. Discover how we get help companies become destinations for workplace happiness and turn culture into a competitive edge. Till next time.